Who are the 4 or 5 studs in that 24 and 25 class? Do we have the quarterback to bring it all together? The favorite YouTube comments and questions from the last week or so on today's show. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Badger fans, thank you for joining us on today's Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this one of your first listens every day. If you're an everydayer and you listen every day, thank you for that as well. Y'all are amazing. This community is incredible. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. It's the most valuable thing any of us has. And to take a tiny bit of it to talk Badgers with me, listen to Badgers, it is incredible and it's appreciated. Thank you. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. Okay, so a bunch I want to get into, but really today's show is just about y'all. It's about your comments, your questions on the YouTube channel, a couple from Discord, and it's a great way to bring your thoughts into the show to continue to integrate the community because the community is the best part of what we do here. And I thought there's always great comments and thoughts. So these are my favorite comments, thoughts, questions from the last week or so from our various channels. Let's go. Let's get it. I love this one to start with. This is from GT Mueller. He said, Alvarez, obviously talking about Barry Alvarez, said you need 4 super studs to win the Big Ten. Who in the 24-25 classes are those super studs? Well, let me get started. This is not easy, right? And if you're watching the show, let me know in the chat. Who are the guys, if you have to pick just 4 in the 25 class and the 24 class, who are the guys that you're picking that you're like, yeah, I'm going to plant my flag on those dudes. Those are the studs. I'll give you my 5. Or my 4, sorry. In the 25 class, I think it's Samuel Leteju. Listen, for a player who just picked up football, and I've talked to his coach a couple times, to already be advanced, to already be understanding technique, to already be understanding scheme, I think his intangibles set him apart, right? A guy coming from a different country, a guy acclimating to this culture, having to adjust all that. That's so much more than the average person, the average high school kid is having to adjust to. And by the way, while picking up a playbook, while adding 50 pounds of good weight, while being an athletic dynamo, while getting recruited, I think he has intangibles that are off the chart. Talking to him, talking to his coach, talking to the Badgers recruiting staff, Samuel Leteju is an absolute dude. By the way, he's going to be like 6'5", 240, 250, maybe a 4'7" guy with a 35-inch vertical. Stop. Like, his athletic profile is immense, and I think he is just scratching the surface. The Badgers got in on him early. They had a relationship to Raphael Dunn. They have a relationship to high school. I think this kid in Florida with no relationships that plays this recruitment out gets like 50 offers. I think Samuel Leteju is absolutely one of my studs in this class. Brenden Aids, love this kid. Love his film, love his explosiveness, short area quickness. He's the type of weapon. So what you need for defenses now is you need arrows in your quiver. You got to be kind of like Hawkeye. You know, if you follow Marvel, if you don't, I'm sorry. But Hawkeye's this archer, right, in the Marvel universe. But he has a bunch of different arrows for different situations. That's what you need defensively. And Ains is a different type of arrow. I think he gives you the ability in space to neutralize opponents' best weapons in one-on-one situations, right? Because he has elite short area quickness, elite acceleration, agility. I think he's a weapon defensively. I love Brenden Ains. Remington Moss. Remington Moss is a guy that I think it's underrated and slept on a little bit in this class because he committed early. But here's a player who's 6'2", good ball skills, can hit, can really run. He's versatile. They're going to try him at corner. There's a chance he sticks at corner as a 6'2" corner that can run with ball skills. That's an NFL guy. I love Remington Moss's game. I love his film. I'm super stoked for him in this class. And the other guy's Mason Posa, sorry. Just committed to the Badgers. Prototypical linebacker, can bend the edge, gets downhill, hits ferociously. I've said it. I think the film reminds me of Tackett Curtis. I think he's got that type of physicality and violence, but he's also versatile. He can cover in space. He can go sideline to sideline. He has a motor. He's everything you're looking for in kind of a do-it-all linebacker. So I think those are my choices in this class for a stud. Let me know who yours is in the 25 class. Logan Powell's my guy who just missed the cut. But again, I think he's a super safe bet. He's 280. He's physical. I think he's going to be a really good interior offensive lineman for the Badgers. In the 24 class, for me, it's Xavier Lucas. I've been on that Xavier Lucas train since I think I was the conductor. I think I got it onto the tracks and started pushing it downhill. Now everybody's on that sucker. Right, Lucas, you're talking about a 6'1", 190, 195-pound cornerback that runs a 4.4 from one of the best high schools in the country that Miami tried to get on late. Yeah, you don't get many players like him in Madison. Kevin Heywood, for all the reasons we talked about, elite length, reach, mobility, is already impressed as a true freshman, early enrollee at left tackle. Dillon Jones, if we're talking the 24 class now, my 4 studs from the 24 class. I've got Xavier Lucas, I've got Kevin Heywood, I got Dilon Jones, who I think is the best of that running back trio coming in. I think he's a 3-down guy. He can block. He can catch balls out of the backfield. He runs between the tackles incredibly naturally. He's going to be a great fit for Longo's system, and he has great contact balance. And then Dillon Johnson, the defensive tackle, the 20-year-old heavyweight wrestling champion, which from a leverage standpoint, from a tenacity standpoint, really matters in the trenches. I think he could be the defensive lineman the batters have been looking for. So those are my 4 in the 24 class, my 4 in the 25 class, but it's hard. You're leaving off a ton of players I'm really high on if you have to limit yourself to 4. That is a great question, though, GT Mueller. Next one up from Hongman. I don't remember the last time I was this pumped for recruiting. I love it. I want to pause there because I sometimes just, every day it's like a new show, and I sometimes am guilty of not taking a step back and be like, yeah, this is really exciting. What the Badgers are doing on the trail now is really friggin' exciting. And as a Badger fan, it feels great. It feels great to be stocking the cupboards with high-quality groceries, which is what you're doing in recruiting, right? You're stocking the cupboards. He said, if we can get that dude at quarterback, I have no reason to think they won't be in the mix for a deep playoff run. I agree. I think they're recruiting well enough outside of the defense line, which we're going to get to. I think they're recruiting well enough for a deep playoff run if they can find the guy at quarterback. But here's the thing, and listen, everybody knows this. I'm stating the obvious. It's really hard to find that guy at quarterback, right? I picked a random year. So I just said 2018. Let's look at 2018. Who are the top 10 pro-style ranked quarterbacks that year? These are the top 10, all 4 or 5-star guys in the 2018 class that were pro-style quarterbacks. Matthew Bolden, Theo Day, Jacob Sermon, Jack Tuttle, Tyler Shaw, Matt Corral, Jaron Williams, Tanner McKee, JT Daniels, Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot of misses in that. And those are the top 10 guys in that class. There's like 3 that you could say, yeah, they really panned out. So it's, your point is 100% correct, Hongman. Honjaman. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but yeah, you're right. But it's so hard to find that guy. And maybe Matt Toyer is that guy. Maybe Locke is that guy, Landon Locke. I don't know. Or maybe you're going to have to get that guy in the portal, right? Because even if you can land one of those top 10 guys, 60% of those guys don't pan out. So yeah, that is the great chase, right? Finding the quarterback. But I think they've done a good enough job outside of potentially the defensive line to put the pieces in place. If you can find that quarterback, that the rest of the roster will be good enough. I think it's a great point. All right, we're going to take a break here, come back, talk about Hilton. We're going to talk about stacking talent. We're going to talk about Camp Randall. That's all coming up next from your comments. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn remains the number 1 source for all your hiring needs. They're a reason that Locked On is partnering with them. They're somebody I use professionally. They're somebody my company uses. It's the largest professional network in the world. Why would you not use it? Like, who are you going with? What knockoff company are you going with if you're not going to go with LinkedIn? And what kind of results are you going to get from there? Listen, LinkedIn is going to deliver the 5-star architect to your business. They're going to give you the 5-star taxi driver, the 5-star welder. LinkedIn Jobs is where you have to go to find the right talent as a hiring manager to prepare your company and to really to drive your business forward, because it's all people dependent, right? At least until the Terminators take over, you got to find the right people. And even then, you need the right people to work on the Terminators. LinkedIn Jobs is probably going to be for you there in the robot apocalypse as well. Every time you go to LinkedIn, you're going to find quality people. They have screening tools. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, let's keep going. Let's just keep getting your comments, your thoughts, your questions. Again, these are my favorite comments, thoughts, questions from the last week or so. This is from Jim Gamble. Wake me up when we land a 5-star defensive lineman. Then you're just going to stay asleep, Jim. I'm sorry. I'm never waking you up. Maybe that's me being pessimistic. Rajiv's not on the show. But listen, there were 4 five-star defensive linemen in the class this year. 4. That's it. Right? One of them, let me pull up the list here because I was trying just poking through some numbers. 4 5-star defensive linemen in the 2025 class. 1 is headed to Georgia, 1 to USC, 1 to Auburn, 1 is uncommitted. Last year, there were 6 5-star defensive linemen. They went to Florida, Mizzou, Miami, Oklahoma, LSU, Notre Dame. The next 6, which were the highest 4-star ranked defensive linemen, went to OSU, Oregon, Miami, Georgia, USC. we're not going to get 5-star defensive linemen. I'm sorry. And as much as people are going to say, and even guys probably on the recruiting stuff say, you're not gonna get a 5-star defensive lineman, Jim. So you're gonna stay sleeping and you're gonna miss all the excitement. So don't pin all your hopes on that. Now, do they need to get 4-star guys? Yeah, they do. And they've been doing it to some degree, right? They got last year Ernest Willer, Dillon Johnson. They can get those type of guys. They had shots this year at a couple guys that were very high, low 4-star guys. Nichols from last year's class was another 4-star guy they were in on. They have to land that kind of really high 3-star with upside or low 4-star tier. And if they stack those guys, they'll be okay, right? But if you're waiting on the 5-star defensive lineman, Jim, I apologize. You're going to be sleeping for a long time, brother. Let's keep going here. I love this coming from Kurt244 because we talked about on the show when Hilton popped. One of the comments I had was, this is a national thing because of the Hilton name, because of who Eugene Hilton's Jr.'s dad was, right? Like, and you had Schefter, and this is what Curve244 is saying. Schefter tweeted about it. When you have Wisconsin, and all publicity for the most part is good publicity, and you have Wisconsin getting mentioned nationally by guys like Schefter, guys with huge national platforms. It only helps, right? Now listen, Hilton's also a 4-star receiver with a lot of talent, but getting Wisconsin that type of notoriety, I think, is a really big deal. T5 says, excited about this one. Good route runner in good hands. Talking about Hilton. Like what he can do on the football field is he can win in ways that we've often struggled winning, right? When you have a guy on the boundary and you're playing Ohio State, you're playing Michigan, you're playing Penn State, you're playing Iowa, and they line their most physical, best cornerback up on your receiver number 1, and they get hands on you, can you get open? Can you get separation through route running, through size, through technique? Hilton is a guy that potentially can solve that for you, that can solve that for the Badgers. It's been one of the biggest weaknesses this team has had in a while. And when people say boundary receiver, you need a boundary receiver, what does that actually mean? It's like if people are watching basketball and they're just like, well, you need a point guard. Well, what does that actually mean? What does the point guard actually do? Well, you need him to initiate offense. You need him to do this, that. What the boundary receiver gives you is the ability to get open against press coverage, against physical corners. It gives you the ability to beat their best guy. It gives you the ability to make contested catches, right, that are harder to do from other spots. So you look at Hilton's film, and his route runnings, and for a high schooler, it's as good as you're going to find. Like, it's really good. There's not a lot of wasted motion. It's pretty crisp. He's catching contested balls, 50-50 balls. That's John McNamara came on, and that was the first thing he said about him. It's super evident on the film. He's a hands catcher, right? He adjusts really well to passes, to deep passes, to intermediate passes. He allows you to win on the edge against the better cornerbacks that line up to you and try to get physical. And that's been an issue for the Badgers probably since Jared Abbrederis and Nick Toon. It's Quintez Cephas for sure. But Quintez didn't get a lot of playing time here because obviously he missed that 1 year. He had an injury, his first one. The guys like, and it's no disrespect, but some of the guys like the Danny Davises and the Kendrick Pryors, they really struggled with press coverage. I mean, heck, even some of the guys in the last couple of years, the Skylar Bells, those type of guys, the DKs, they've really struggled when cornerbacks have gotten handsy with them. This is what Hilton can solve potentially. So I think this is a good comment. Good route runner, great hands. Let's keep it going here. A couple more questions, thoughts. This is from PMW Welding. I think one of the largest problems with Camp Randall is that a decent amount of the crowd is 70 plus and doesn't get loud or leave at halftime. I always wonder about this because I hear this comment, and PMW, thank you for the comment, my friend. I always hear this comment about Wisconsin fans, and I don't know the answer to this, so someone please tell me. Isn't that true at every stadium? Like, doesn't every stadium have 70-plus-year-old people there? Listen, it's not like 70-year-old plus people in Alabama are getting wild, right? Not with all the saturated fats and high cholesterol foods they eat. Sorry, that was a shot. I didn't mean it like that. I just mean, like, I've lived in the South. The diets aren't great down there at times. My bigger point is, I don't think there's 70-plus-year-old people at any stadium that are losing their minds, and every stadium's got to have them. Is Wisconsin that? Is it that different? I don't think so. I think it's probably you get hyper localized in on your stadium, your people, your fans. But I think every stadium has their older generation that, listen, respect to them, by the way. The older generation's been there for a long time. They've been coming to the games for a long time. I got to respect that. But they're not going to lose their minds. Listen, I'm 41. I'm not as energetic as I was when I was 21. I'm not going to be as energetic at 71 as I am at 41. They're going to have to wheel me into a stadium, bro. I'm going to take a hover lounge chair into the stadium when I'm 71. So I don't hate on the 70-year-olds, man, just chilling, watching the game, right? They've done their time. I think that bigger issue, and we're going to get into something Playmaker says later, is they got to figure out the student section a little, just not figure it out, but how can we improve that area? And then some of it's just you got to get night games. You got to get later games. You got to get later kicks. I don't think there's any real easy solution for the 11 o'clock kicks in Madison. It is what it is. That's a tough one for us. Will Hanna. Top 20 classes are certainly good enough to compete at an elite level as long as the signal caller is good enough. I agree. And that's the same thing that we were saying up earlier from Hogman. I agree. Will obviously is super sharp and brings a lot of great comments to the show. I agree. If you get top 20 classes and you stack them, right, you got to stack them, which this staff looks like they're able to do. If you get top 20 classes and stack them, if you find the right quarterback, which we already acknowledge is really friggin' hard to do. It's hard to recruit the right quarterback. And even when you do, most of the time they don't hit, right? Mertz is a great example of that. Mertz was a 4-star elite quarterback, and he didn't hit. Not for Wisconsin. Maybe he's kind of hitting for Florida. And I don't think that was all Mertz's fault. We don't have to relitigate that, but it's really hard to find the right quarterback. But I agree. I agree with you completely. I think the top 20 classes are good enough for the most part if you find an elite quarterback. This is from Todd's Great Outdoors. I was mentioning like cold weather and some of the issues there in recruiting. And, Todd says it's only cold for like 2 or 3 games per year. I don't get why cold weather is a factor at all. Here's what I'll tell you. I think everything's a factor, right? When you have multiple good decisions, and I've done this with jobs, I'm sure other people have too. I've done this with like candy bars, multiple candy bars I love. Like, listen, I love the white chocolate Hershey's, and I also love Snickers. Sometimes you just got to go to the nitty gritty and find the balancing factor here. Cold matters because it could be a deciding factor, right? In 2 programs that are very equal in pedigree, you like both coaches, both have great environments. Maybe one's just a little warmer and that's it. I guess what I'm saying is, do I think cold? Everybody's different. And B, I think every factor matters somewhat, right? And if somebody has a bunch of offers on the table, they like a bunch of different places, and they don't really like winter or cold weather, that could be a part of the equation. And I don't hate somebody for that. I know people who have moved from Wisconsin because they don't want to deal with winter. Yeah, I get it. I'm moving back to Wisconsin. I've said this before, but growing up, I wintered with my mom and stepdad in Wisconsin, and I summered with my dad in Arizona. So yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for that. Wintering in Wisconsin and summering in Arizona. But yeah, I think weather is a factor for some people because it can be, right? Because if you have 2 options that you like equally and you don't like cold weather and the other one's warm, why wouldn't that factor in your decision? I don't know. I don't see that as something that people shouldn't consider. This is from the Playmaker, again, really good friend of the show. He said they need to get the student seats figured out. Just get them in there a little quicker. I agree. And he does say, I love this point. I love this. He said Camp Randall in 2010 to 2014 was an absolute psycho atmosphere. Yeah, agreed. And he's hitting on something that's super true, right? If you get big games in there, later in the day, Camp Randall's electric. Camp Randall at night is electric. Camp Randall for big games is pretty electric. Camp Randall is a great atmosphere. When I did a show earlier and I said, is it such a great atmosphere? I think it's a little overrated, but given the right circumstances, Camp Randall can be a nightmare. And I completely agree with what he's saying here. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back. A bunch more coming up here. Coach Chris stuff. Are we good enough to go 9-3, 10-2? Some more thoughts on the defensive line. All of that's coming up on Locked On Badgers. But today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the #1 source for all of your sports betting needs. If you want to have a little fun, spice up your sports weekend, go over to FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, whatever. Plus, great time to do it, right? Futures coming up on college football, NFL, baseball's full swing. NBA finals are basically a wrap, but a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of stuff in season that you can do at FanDuel. Futures, parlay, spreads, teasers, it's all there. And it's incredibly easy to use, and you get the payouts quickly if you win. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on all of the sports that you want over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Okay, let's get some more of these comments again. Really do appreciate everybody comment on the show. I read every single one. I try to incorporate them into shows. So I think once a week, we're just going to wrap them and say, hey, these are my favorite comments of the week, and we'll do an entire show on it. Next one up here is from Chemming. He said, top 20 class for sure this year, but not as good as last year. If they finish 10 plus wins, next year's class will be top 10 guaranteed. So Chemming is coming in with the guarantee. He's locking it in. He says, if we win 10 plus games next year, we will have a top 10 recruiting class guaranteed. I don't think so. First of all, I don't think we're going to get to 10 wins anyway, but for the sake of this question, 10 plus wins is going to help this staff sell for sure. You have an incredible recruiting staff. We've already seen it in play for 2.5 years now. I think we have enough data points where we can establish a trend line, and the trend line is a little bit higher than what we were used to at Wisconsin. So adding wins, adding a successful season and if you win 10 plus, that means you're beating some really good teams. That's only going to help this staff sell. But again, to be in the top 10, just off the top of your head, you have Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, Michigan, USC, Oklahoma. Who am I forgetting in here? That's already 7. That's already 7 that I don't know if you're ever going to out-recruit them. And then think of the other, Texas, and then that's 8. And then you still have an Auburn out there. You still have a Clemson out there who still recruits really well. You still have that's already 10, a Miami, Florida, an FSU. You have a Penn State that I didn't talk about, Notre Dame. My point being, I'm not being a Debbie Downer, I promise you, but it is going to be incredibly, incredibly hard for Wisconsin to break in the top 10 when you start looking at the schools that are traditionally there. Don't take that as a knock at Wisconsin. It's incredibly hard for any school to break into the top 10 unless you're kind of one of that group of 12 that we talked about. So I don't think so, but I'm here for it. Listen, if they get a top 10 class, I'm absolutely here for it. Keep going here. B-Vault says, love the videos, perfect length of my commute. Let's go, B-Vault. Appreciate you tuning in, man. Good comment from Will Hanna here, which I disagree with a little bit, but I want to put it up. He said, here's where I disagree just a bit with Brian. When you run the type of defense the Badgers want to run, it is most important for the D lineman to hold the point of attack with an athletic linebacker core. If their play explosion and making plays on the defensive front is important, but not as important as holding the point of attack. I agree with this in general, right? He is correct. Will Hanna, in my opinion, he is correct that holding the point of attack is the most important part of the defense line, but it's also like the bare minimum of the defense line. Yes, you got to hold the point of attack so the athletic linebackers can make the play. They can clean things up. They can get downhill. But the great defensive lines that win national titles and win playoff games, and this is where I'm going to disagree a little bit respectfully with Will Hanna, they also have dudes who sack the quarterback and get after it and demand double teams. I don't think you can have a defensive line that just holds the point of attack and be an elite team. I think you need a defensive line that is equally disruptive, because then what happens is you got to double team maybe one of those guys, and it even opens up even more for the linebackers behind them. And maybe we're splitting hairs on this a little bit, because I do agree with him that you have to at least hold the point of attack. But I think if that's all you get from the defensive line, I don't think you're going to go on deep playoff runs. Just my opinion, and I could be dead wrong on it. Keep going here. Ecklander says, I love Brian, but man, he is the Cardinal Kool-Aid killer. Most of the other shows, I'm thinking we were right up there with the top teams, and Brian starts telling the truth. Listen, I'll tell you this, and I always tell people this. Like Brian, dislike Brian. I'm talking about Brian Smith, who comes on. Like Brian, dislike Brian, agree with Brian, disagree with Brian. The dude is consistent, and he tells the truth from his perspective 100% of the time. That's all you can ask from anybody. He will never come on here and blow smoke to try to get clicks or to try to get Badger fans to like him. Like, that's unique. A lot of people are afraid to just call it like it is. At times, I feel like I couch my opinion at times. I'll just be honest. Brian just comes on and says, no. Like, remember last year when we were super high on the Badger? I say we collectively, but for the most part, Badger media, Badger fans, I thought we'd win 10 games. Brian came in and said 7-5, and people clowned him. Like, people last year were like, come on, man. We went 7-5. He absolutely nailed it. So he tells the truth, and he tells the truth from his perspective, which is all you can ask for people. And he's consistent. Keep going here. Also another one from Pete. Brian is consistent in nothing else. Yeah, I just said that. Defense line. Here's the part that I wanted to highlight in this comment, because I hope it didn't get missed. Brian said the Badgers are ahead of schedule in every other area. Looking at the couple years Fickell has been here, receivers, offensive line, running backs, quarterbacks, cornerbacks, safeties, linebackers. Brian's like, I didn't think they would recruit this well this quickly. And this is a national player. This is a national media guy who covers Florida State. He has a ton of connections. He has no obligation to try to blow smoke for Wisconsin. And he's straight up. Wisconsin is ahead of the schedule. Outside of defensive line, which we've talked about a lot, be excited about it. Like, Wisconsin's ahead of the schedule, and I'm very excited about that. Bob M said, I heard you predict Wisconsin 9-3. Hardly pessimistic. This comes from a show we did where someone asked, like, why are you so pessimistic on football? And I was like, I don't think I am. I just think people are maybe a little too optimistic. And just for the record, Bob, appreciate you commenting as always, my friend. I actually went 8-4. 9-3 is my ceiling. But even 8-4, like, that's a good year for the Badgers. That would be a really successful season this year, and I'd be good with it. It'd be progress, and you'd be having a better record against a harder schedule. I don't see 8-4 and get frustrated. My opinion. JB talking about Leteju, 6'5", 240, running a 4.7 with a 38-inch vertical. Put him at receiver or tight end. JB, my man, I thought about tight end too. Listening to him talk and seeing that wingspan, it's easy to envision. Like, you can't put that dude at receiver because he's going to end up being like 260. But you could definitely envision him as like a 6'5", 255-pound tight end with his physicality, his ability to move in the open space, the wingspan. I don't know if he can catch a ball, but he used to be a receiver, right? If you remember, the guy was a receiver transitioned to linebacker. So I 100% agree there. Last comment here from Taskmaster. He said, Ryan, your significant other trusts you to go grocery shopping. The man who doesn't know what a Colander is. How many guys out there actually know what a Colander is? I'm straight up. Let me know in the comments if before listening to this show, if you actually knew what a Colander was. Like, I know what the tool is, but I guarantee you a lot. I shouldn't say guarantee. Maybe I'm a caveman. I don't feel like a lot of men actually know what the spaghetti strainer is called. I think they just say the spaghetti strainer. So let me know in the comments. My significant other often does not let me go grocery shopping, but on Wisconsin, thank you all so much for tuning in. Some really good guests coming up this week. We got Nick Osen coming up. I think we have Logan Powell coming up, the interior offensive lineman. Really excited for that one. So a bunch of stuff coming up. Plus, I think somebody from the Badger staff coming up this week as well, hopefully. On Wisconsin, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go.